What's up everyone, it's your boy, Haven. Today we'll be exploring the members of the Night's Watch as well as the Wildling Clans beyond the wall. If you haven't already, check out my previous series exploring every single house in all of the regions of Westeros. As always, like and subscribe for more content, whether it's CK3 or animated lore, and check out the Patreon if you're interested. Now, let's begin. So here we have the wall. It is of course independent from the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. If we split this into duchies, or at least in-game duchies, we have the wall itself, we have Brandon's gift, which was given to the Night's Watch by Brandon the Builder, supposedly, and we have the new gift, which was granted by Good Queen Alysanne. There are several castles along the wall, although they're all abandoned. There are only 3 remaining by the time of the main book series, that being Castle Black in the middle, there we go. Oh, I love the little elevator there. Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, as we can see, and the Shadow Tower, which is by the Bridge of Skulls over here. So we're going to go through all of the Night's Watch members. Let's begin with the one and only Castle Black. So Castle Black, as well as the Night's Watch in general, is ruled by Lord Commander Jantos Corgyle, who's the Lord Commander before Jeor Mormont. So this is set during Robert's Rebellion, so he's the current LC. The Corgyles are a Dornish house. In the mod, they're in charge of the Duchy of Sandstone. So it's kind of cool, the idea that someone from the southernmost point of Westeros ends up becoming Lord Commander. From sand to snow. As a member of the Night's Watch, of course, he has the Black Brother trait. So Jantos was the 996th Lord Commander. We know very little about him except that he died in the year 288, and that he used to have quite regular patrols beyond the wall, which the Wildlings were able to take advantage of. So my Maester is Prince Aemon of the Night's Watch. Maester Aemon himself. The traits here are perfect, I think. Patient, humble, temperate, content, dragon dreams. He's an aged man, he's blind, he's a black brother and a maester. He's a double virgin. He is the 3rd son of King Maekar Targaryen. He studied at the Citadel in Old Town, and he passed on the opportunity to become the king due to his vows, and so his younger brother Aegon V took the throne. And Aemon later joined the Night's Watch to prevent himself from being used as a puppet in any sort of conspiracy against Aegon V. During the main books, he sort of acts as a mentor figure to Jon Snow, one of many, and he gives him the famous "Love is the death of duty" speech. Jon Snow sends him to Old Town via boat because he's worried that Melisandre might sacrifice him, as he, technically has king's blood, he's Targaryen, but he dies on his way to Old Town. Dies of old age. The next member is Sir Winton Stout, from House Stout. This is a northern house from the Barrowlands. So Sir Winton is a very old man. By the time of the main books, he's completely lost his wits. Once, he was a knight in his prime. He was a dozen votes away from being Lord Commander at one point. He's still alive as of the latest book. He's chilling at the wall. Next we have the old bear himself, Jeor Mormont. He's the former Lord of Bear Island, but he gave up his seat, basically, so that his son Jorah could become the Lord. Jeor was elected Lord Commander in 288, and he has stopped all the regular patrols that Jantos Corgyle had in place and switched them up with some more random, some random patrols, random expeditions. Confused the Wildlings. When Jon Snow joins the Night's Watch, he is named Jeor's steward, because he wants to groom him for command. In response to Mance Rayder uniting all the tribes and the undead and so on, he launches the Great Ranging beyond the wall. They camp at the Fist of the First Men, but it's attacked, so they retreat back to Craster's Keep, but during there a mutiny essentially breaks out, and Jeor is stabbed to death by Ollo Lophand. Next up we have Sir Otten Withers, from House Withers, which is a house from the Reach. He's an old, small man, and during the Great Ranging he commands the rearguard. And when the others attack the Fist of the First Men, he sort of falls to his knees in horror and despair and disbelief, and then a riderless horse runs past and, smacks him in the head. Clydas is one of the 2 stewards of Maester Aemon. Although he's described as being half-blind himself, he reads all of the letters to Maester Aemon. I guess Braille hasn't been invented yet. He's described as having dim pink eyes, so I don't know if the implication is that he's meant to be an albino or something, but he hasn't got that trait in the mod. Sariam Fen is next. He is non-canon. And here we have Jared, who I believe is the Jared. Yeah, the open terrain expert makes me think he is Jared from the prologue of the first book, A Game of Thrones, because he's described as being quite experienced. So he's a ranger who joined the Night's Watch as a boy, hence all the experience. He goes on arranging during that prologue with Will and Sir Waymar Royce, but Waymar and Will are both slain by the others, and so he deserts the Night's Watch. He flees back down past the wall into the north, although he's captured and beheaded. In the show it's switched around, where it's actually Jared who's killed in the woods and it's Will who runs away and deserts the Night's Watch. Next up we have Black Jack Bulwer from House Bulwer, which is a reach house. Presumably he's Black Jack because he's a black brother, or maybe it describes a dark temperament, I'm not sure. But he's a ranger of the Night's Watch. During the Wildling attack in the 3rd book, he defends Castle Black, and he survives. He's named the new First Ranger, or I guess acting First Ranger, considering Benjen is technically MIA, he's not dead. He's sent on a ranging by Jon Snow, however he is captured by a Wildling chieftain known as the Weeper, who plucks out his eyes and beheads him and sends the heads back to Jon Snow. Denna Frostfinger is semi-canon. He is a character from the Telltale Game of Thrones, which I keep promising I'm going to live stream at some point. Rude, wrathful, stubborn, cynical, quick, one-handed. I don't know anything about that game, that story. I don't know who this character is, but he seems interesting. I mean, Frostfinger is a cool nickname, so. Next up we have the Ranger Dick Follard. He's known as Deaf Dick because, well, he can't hear. Due to the fact he's deaf, he's not brought along to the Great Ranging, he stays behind. And he defends Castle Black against the Wildlings, but he is shot by one of Ygritte's arrows and dies. This guy, Sir Duncan Page, is non-canon. However, Yoren is very much canon. He is a wandering crow, which means that he is a black brother sent across the Seven Kingdoms to recruit new members of the Night's Watch, whether they be willing participants, disgruntled fourth-born sons of minor nobles, or vicious criminals who have no choice. He had some kind of accident that injured his shoulder, which is why he was sent off to collect people. In the 1st book, he's the one who rescues Arya Stark from King's Landing and disguises her as a boy to take her north back to her family. On the way north, they camp at a abandoned holdfast. They end up being attacked by Sir Amory Lorch and his men. And Arya sees his body. After the fight, she sees his body lying there with a big axe in his skull. So it may have been Sir Amory Lorch's men, Lannister men, or some people theorise it was Rorge, the criminal he was transporting to the wall, because Arya gives him an axe to help him escape the cage, and some fans theorise that maybe he got his revenge on Yoren. Brave, honest, rude, diligent. Rest in peace, my boy. Next we have the rogue himself, Ulmer. Greedy, callous, gregarious, brave. Fitting traits for a former rebel, a former outlaw. He belonged to the Kingswood Brotherhood, an outlaw group back in the day run by Sir Miles Toyne. He supposedly stole a kiss from Princess Elia Martell and shot an arrow through the hand of Sir Gerald Hightower, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. In the main books, he's an old man at the wall. He's a bit of, like I said, he's a bit of a rogue. And he's still alive, I think. Next up, we have Celador, who I think is meant to be, yes, Holy Brother. So he is Septon Celador. That is a drunkard trait. He is the drunk Septon of the Night's Watch, Castle Black specifically. Ronald Harclay is the fox-faced ranger. He survives the Fist of the First Men, but then he sort of disappears from the story, so he presumably dies at Craster's Keep. Sir Endrew Tarth, from House Tarth, from the island of Tarth in the Stormlands. So he replaces Alistair Thorne as Master of Arms, although he's previously from the Shadow Tower and he's reassigned to Castle Black to take this role, so perhaps he should actually be serving the Shadow Tower. Unplayable. He dies fighting the Wildlings at the Bridge of Skulls over the gorge. Next we have Othel Yarwick from House Yarwick, from the Westerlands. So he is the first builder of the Night's Watch, which means he's in charge. So there are 3 groups in the Night's Watch. You've got the Rangers who go out beyond the wall. You have the Stewards who are in charge of ravens and cleaning and cooking and all that stuff. And then you have the Builders who help maintain and repair the castles along the wall. And Othel Yarwick is the leader. He too fights at the Bridge of Skulls, but unlike Endrew Tarth, he survives. So during the big Lord Commander election, he does initially put his name forward, but then he withdraws and votes for Jon Snow, I think. Although he grows to hate Jon Snow's decisions. And I guess he may be one of the conspirators who assassinates Jon Snow. We don't know for sure, but we only know 2 specific conspirators, but it could be that Othel's one of them. Now let's move on to Malador Locke, from the Northern House Locke. Another brother of the Night's Watch who takes part in the Great Ranging and vanishes from the story, so must have died at some point. Fist of the First Men, Craster's Keep mutiny, we don't know. And here we have the Old Pomegranate. He hasn't got that nickname yet, but I think it's because Dolorous Ed gives him that nickname in the future. He is from the Northern House Marsh, which is very close to the neck in this mod. Bowen is the Lord Steward of the Night's Watch, so he's in charge of all the stewards. During the Great Ranging, he's made the Castellan of Castle Black, and during Mance Rayder's attack, he actually leads the defence on the Bridge of Skulls, and he's wounded, but he survives. And probably due to the stress and everything, he ends up losing a bunch of weight. A bit like the first builder, Othel Yarwick, he puts his name forward to be Lord Commander, but when he realises he's splitting the vote, he pulls out and supports Jano Slint. And he hates every decision Jon makes, he just absolutely hates it. And then he gets to the point where enough is enough, and he launches the coup, the mutiny, and he stabs Jon Snow to death, along with another brother named Whittlestick. And we know there are other knives going in, but we don't know who they belong to, but Bowen Marsh is definitely the leader of this conspiracy. But he does it while crying and saying for the watch, so it's not like in the show where everyone's kind of smug, like he's genuinely sad about it. So he hasn't got a callous trait or a sadistic trait or anything. He's a good man. Next up we have Glendon Hewitt. He is the Master of Arms at Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, so I guess he should actually be at Eastwatch. He becomes the acting commander of Eastwatch when Cotter Pike sails up to Hardhome. And Jon Snow isn't happy because Sir Glendon is close allies with Alliser Thorne. I don't know if these are randomly generated traits, but the sadistic trait could just be simply because he is friends with Alliser Thorne, and Alliser Thorne is a bit of a sadist himself. Manky Raider, I don't know who this is, we can probably skip that. Now, this is Mance Rayder himself. Gregarious, arrogant, ambitious, perfect. He is the future King Beyond the Wall after all. Yeah, a grey eminence. As familiar with the nuances of diplomacy as the back of his hand. I mean, how else did he unite all of those tribes together? He's also got the poet trait. He does play the lute and he sings. He's a bard of sorts. So Mance Rayder was the son of a wildling woman and a brother of the Night's Watch. And the raiders he lived with were slain by the Night's Watch, and so they took him in and they raised him as a brother, which explains his last name. They must have nicknamed him Mance Rayder. When he was an adult ranging beyond the wall, he was wounded by a shadow cat, and a wildling woman actually nursed him back to health. And she also fixed his cloak, because he had a load of, obviously rips and tears and claw marks in his cloak, so this woman patched it up with red silk. And then when he returned to the Night's Watch, Sir Dennis Mallister said, no, burn it. Burn that cloak. It needs to be fully black. Burn it. I don't want all these cool red strips in it. Get rid of it. And that was the last straw, and he went, actually, no. I'm not going to do what I'm told. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then he went off beyond the wall, and next thing you know, he's uniting various different tribes, fighting some other tribes, creating beef, squashing beef, and then eventually he becomes king beyond the wall. And why? Because the dead are rising, the others are coming, and he wants to unite his people, unite the free folk, and take them down south. Unfortunately for him, his army is defeated by Stannis the Manus himself, and because he has king's blood, he's burned at the stake, although Jon Snow orders a bunch of men to shoot arrows at him so he doesn't have to suffer. And that's the end of Mance Rayder. Or is it? Well, it's not, because Melisandre actually puts him in a glamour and makes him look like the wildling chieftain Rattleshirt, the old switcheroo. Meanwhile, Rattleshirt is of course burned at the stake, and everyone thinks it's Mance. So Melisandre has assigned Mance on a secret mission to go all the way down to Winterfell and rescue Arya Stark. Although the last we hear of him, according to the Pink Letter, we don't know if that's true or not, he is supposedly in a cage, wearing skin as a cloak so he doesn't freeze to death, and Ramsay's going to kill him. But we don't know if that's true or not. You know what? I just realised I was playing at the Robert's Rebellion stardate, and not the Crown Stag stardate, which would actually have more members of the Night's Watch who joined after Robert's Rebellion. So I've gone up to the year 284, and we're going to look at the people we may have missed out. Such as this guy, Sir Mors Westford, known as the Butcher, from House Westford of the Westerlands. He is a ranger. He is not actually from the books. He's semi-canon. He's from the Game of Thrones video game, and I don't mean the Telltale game, I mean that weird RPG that came out in 2011 or something. I want to play that one as well. But he's one of the 2 playable characters, apparently. I don't know anything else about him beyond that. But I'm guessing he was sent to the wall as a result of Robert's Rebellion, seeing as he only appears at this start date. And next up, under Mance Rayder, we have Alliser Thorne. It's his absence that made me sort out the date. Alliser Thorne is a member of House Thorne from the Crownlands, and he's a fierce Targaryen loyalist. After Robert's Rebellion, he had the choice of being executed or being sent to the Wall, and so he was sent to the Wall, where he rose to become the Master-at-Arms. He despises Jon Snow and Sam Tarly. He kind of hates everyone, but he especially hates Jon Snow. Probably because he's the bastard of one of the big rebel lords. So he's sent to King's Landing to show a white's hand to the king, but it rots away by the time he gets there and no one takes him seriously. This was meant to be a scene adapted for the show, but the actor who plays Alistair Thorne couldn't be in the second season, so they had to scrap it. When he returns, however, he becomes an ally of Janos Slynt and supports him to become Lord Commander. The last we see him, he's sent on a ranging beyond the wall by Jon Snow, and we haven't heard about him since. Callous, yeah. I said he was sadistic earlier, but I think callous is better. Rude, stubborn, vengeful. That's Alistair, all right. It's honestly incredible how many people call him Alistair Thorne. Like, I've seen people say Alistair so often. Next up, we have Sir Aladale Winch, the Ranger, from House Winch, which is an Ironborn house, so it's interesting that he's a knight. He is slain at the Bridge of Skulls. There's this guy, Sir George Weller, who is actually non-canon, and there's this Tyroshi boy called Olo Lophand, probably because he's missing a hand. Yeah, there we go, one-handed. There he is, Tyroshi culture. So yeah, he's a Tyroshi rogue, I guess. He lost a hand for being a thief, hence the one-handed trait. But that's not why he was sent to the wall. He was actually sent to the wall for sleeping with the wife of a knight, hence the lustful trait. So I imagine he's knowing Westerosi punishments, he's probably lost a lot more than a hand. As a ranger, he takes part in the Great Ranging, and he survives the fists of the First Men, but when they get back to Craster's Keep, tensions are high. Craster is withholding food from them, and they have enough. They've had enough. So Olo Lophand stabs Gio Mormont and kills him. Although, like all of the other mutiny conspirators, he's eventually tracked down by the mysterious Cold Hands and killed. Here's Big Liddle, Duncan Liddle, the son of Lord Torren of the Northern Mountain Clans. He's a ranger. Brandon Fenn, much like the other Fenn, is non-canon. Here we have Thorin Smallwood, which definitely has to be one of the many dick jokes in A Song of Ice and Fire. He's quite a sort of pathetic, pompous man who hates Jon Snow because only the dickheads hate Jon Snow. Wrathful, arrogant, callous. I don't know if you can hear the storm outside my window, but I hope it's adding to the atmosphere. After the death of Sir Jeremy Riker, he becomes the acting First Ranger, and he commands the vanguard during the Great Ranging. When the others attack the Fist of the First Men, a giant snow bear, an undead snow bear, stands up and swipes his head off. Just completely knocks his head off. Sir Jarman Buckwell is a ranger. He's the leader of the scouts during the Great Ranging, although he dies at some point, we don't know how. Probably Fist of the First Men. Sir Jeremy Riker is the acting First Ranger before Thorin Smallwood, but after Benjen Stark goes missing. So he was loyal to Aerys during Robert's Rebellion, and that's why he was sent to the wall. So yeah, it's the corpse of the Night's Watch member, Jafer Flowers, that rises up as a white and stabs him to death. This guy, Sir Arnold Merryweather, is non-canon. And this guy, Watt, is the brother of Jack B. Lucky. So Jack B. Lucky is a one-eyed rogue who ends up joining the Brotherhood Without Banners, and he mentions that he has a brother at the Night's Watch. So that's a nice little touch. Tarion is, I guess he's non-canon. I have no idea who this man is. But anyway, that's Castle Black. Let's look at the Shadow Tower next. The commander of the Shadow Tower is Sir Dennis Mallister from House Mallister, that ancient, awesome Riverlands house with one of the best names and one of the best sigils, honestly. He's Lord Jason Mallister's uncle, and he's, like the rest of his family, he's very noble, chivalrous, old-fashioned, you know. He doesn't like the Ironborn at all, of course, because he's a Mallister, and so he hates the commander of Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, which is the Ironborn bastard Cotter Pike. So naturally they've been sent to opposite sides of the wall. So he puts himself forward to be Lord Commander during that whole vote, but Sam Tarly persuades him to cast a vote for Jon Snow, because Sam lies and pretends that Stannis is thinking of naming Cotter Pike the Lord Commander. And so he says, I don't want to split the vote, I've got to vote for Jon Snow. Of course, Sam Tarly says exactly the same thing to Cotter Pike about Dennis Mallister, so he plays them off against each other, and helps get Jon elected. As of the latest book, he's chilling at the Shadow Tower, he's still alive. Let's look at his court. So we've got Corran Halfhand. He's a ranger, and he's basically the second in command of the Shadow Tower. He lost a few fingers to a wildling axe, hence the name Halfhand. He's kind of a living legend amongst the Night's Watch and the Wildlings beyond the wall. We meet him in the second book where Jon joins him on a scouting mission, but they get captured by Wildlings. Corran, being the badass that he is, basically says, listen, Jon, kill me, earn the Wildlings' trust, ingratiate yourself with them, learn their plan, and tell the Night's Watch. And so he lets himself be killed by Jon to help him. This guy, Blaine, is essentially Qhorin Halfhand's second in command. We know he's at the Fist of the First Men, but we don't hear about him since, so he probably dies. This guy, Mullen, there we go, he's a Maester. Maester Mullen. We don't know much about him, but he's described as being more of a fighter than a Maester. We have Clarent Lugus, Robin Lugus, and Lorimor Lugus. House Lugus being a semi-canon house. It's from the Song of Ice and Fire tabletop role-playing game. And then these guys, Finn, Artos, Hugo, Gage, Steven, Mark, Ryan, Septon Royce, they're all non-canon names. I think they're randomly generated. There's also a 2-year-old named Gren. I assume that's not, like, the Gren from the books, because what was this boy up to? Damn. Anyway, next up we're going to go over to Eastwatch-by-the-Sea, which is run by, as I said, Cotter Pike. I don't think we ever learn what house he belongs to, but the mod has made him a bastard of House Masterly. So he's the opposite of Sir Dennis Mallister. He's low-born. He's the bastard son of a tavern wench. He's a lot more kind of coarse and rude. He actually helps Stannis in his attack against the Wildlings. And as I said before, he initially puts his name forward to be Lord Commander, but he pulls out and votes for Jon Snow instead, due to Sam Tarly's manipulations. We last see him going off to Hardhome to rescue a bunch of Wildlings. Although the letter we get back from Hardhome talks about, chaos and people eating their own dead and dead things in the water, so I doubt he's going to survive his expedition. So this guy Halleck is not canon. So yeah, Lord Cotter's captain. This is Sir Maynard Holt from House Holt of the North. Maynard Holt is the captain of the ship Talon, which is the ship that travels to Hardhome, so he's probably a dead man too. This guy, Maester Harmune, is canon. A bit like Septon Celador, he's a complete drunkard, and he's in charge of the correspondence to and from Eastwatch-by-the-Sea because Cotter Pike is illiterate. And as far as I'm aware, Mors, Gerhard, Roger, Andrin, John, Hallis, Willem, Berrican, Mathel, Robert, Henley, Beren, Gunnar, they're non-canon and they're randomly generated. Although it's worth noting that Eastwatch-by-the-Sea has a drowned man, an acolyte of a priest of the drowned god. So that's kind of cool. We have an Ironborn bastard rules this castle, and so he's got some connections to the drowned god. Now, as the storm rages on behind me, so still don't know if you can hear that, we're going to move beyond the wall and look at all of the Wildling clans and chieftains. So, beginning with the Bay of Seals, ruled by Chieftain Kaileg of Clan Wooden Ear, and here we have a wooden ear on brown. So this is based on Kaileg Wooden Ear, who, along with Tormund and other chieftains, cross the wall and make a pact with the Night's Watch. It's a truce. They give up hostages and wealth, and in return, Wildlings are settled south of the wall, and they help to garrison the castles of the Night's Watch to protect it against the others. Going up to Hardhome, we have Varamir Sigskins of Clan Mossfoot. Now, I think Mossfoot is made up for the mod, but Varamir is a book character, a rather nasty book character. He's a warg. He's called Sixskins because he has basically a pack of 6 animals he can warg into. He's got 3 wolves, a snow bear, a shadow cat, and an eagle. Looking at his family, he's got an older sister named Meha, who, as part of Wildling tradition, she named her younger brothers when they were in the womb. So she named Varamir Lump, and she named this kid Bump. Now, Varamir was very sickly and weak, and so he walked into a dog and he murdered his healthy younger brother Bump. And as such, he was cast out and sent to live with an older warg who taught him the ways of skin changing and so on. And he ended up becoming a sort of a kind of a warlord of sorts, controlling various villages, using animals as his muscle, which is kind of cool. He eventually joined Mance Rayder, and during the attack on the wall, he was warging his eagle to scout and so on, but it was burst into flames by Melisandre, and he went insane and he lost control of a bunch of his animals and he fled up north. He ended up being stabbed by a child, and while dying he tried to warg into a spearwife, a wildling woman, but the process essentially killed her and drove her insane, and so he ended up flying into the body of one of his wolves called One Eye. So as of the latest book, he's technically dead from his wounds, but his consciousness lives within the wolf One Eye, which is within the wolf pack run by Bran's direwolf Summer. Here in Crow's Creek we have the White Mask clan, White Mask on Brown, led by Chiefess Morna. So this is based off of Morna White Mask, who joins Tormund and takes part in the truce. She's a wildling leader and a warrior witch, and she's given command of the abandoned castle of Queensgate. Up here, Corpse Cove is ruled by Gerrick Kingsblood. Yeah, arrogant, ambitious, authoritative. He's a bit of a pompous man, boasting about the fact that he's descended from Kingsblood, you know, King Raymond Redbeard, the ancient king beyond the wall. Not ancient, but old. Although other characters say, no, he's not descended from the king beyond the wall, he's descended from the king's younger brother who fled the battle when they lost. And the mod has him descended from Red Raven, the younger brother of King Raymond Redbeard. Nonetheless, he talks about his heritage a lot, and he's proclaimed King of the Wildlings by Sir Axel Florent, and he establishes the House of Redbeard. And he has 3 daughters. So his eldest daughter is betrothed to Axel Florent, who's essentially the hand of the queen. His second daughter is betrothed to Sir Buckler, who's a queen's man. And his third daughter is betrothed to a knight called Sir Maelgorn of Redpool. In his court we have Osher, who may specifically be Osher, the wildling, who goes south of the wall and is captured and held at Winterfell, but then ends up helping the Starks and helps Rickon Stark escape to Skagos. I don't know if it's meant to be the same one. Within Kyleg's court, we have Gavin the Trader. Gavin the Trader being one of the free folk leaders who joins Tormund as part of the truce. Okay, here we have Craster's Keep. Here we have Craster's Keep, ruled by the one and only Craster. Oh boy. Yeah, we all know the shtick here. He has daughters and he marries his daughters and he has daughters with them, and on the cycle goes. He does have sons, but he sacrifices them to the cold gods, so essentially the others. He gives them to the others. Some sort of sacrifice, some ritual, some pact, I don't know. He's a bastard son of a wildling woman and a member of the Night's Watch, and he helps the Night's Watch. He sort of gives them a place to camp and some food and so on when they're ranging. The Night's Watch members who survive the Fists of the First Men aren't very happy, and it explodes into mutiny, and a brother named Dirk slices his throat open. Sadistic, arrogant, greedy, lustful. We know the names of some of his wives and daughter wives. We know of Nella, we know of Dyer, we know of Fernie, and we know of Gilly. Father and grandfather, lovely. Yeah, Gilly of course is rescued by Sam Tarly, and she's currently travelling with him to Old Town. Gilly of course is rescued by Sam Tarly, and they hook up, and she's currently with him at Old Town, I think. Den Barrows is ruled by Clan Bloodfang, which isn't canon. That's not mentioned in the books. I think it's made up for the mod. So yeah, I don't know who Chieftain Bodger is, but I do know who Alfin Crowkiller is in his court. So yeah, Alfin Crowkiller is one of the bloodiest wildling raiders. He scouts for Mance, and he actually bumps into Corran Halfhand while he's ranging with Jon Snow, and Corran kills him. In the mod, he belongs to the Frostfang clan. Going down to Fang Spear, we have Clan Warrior Mane, what looks like a giant holding a club, or maybe it's meant to be a wildling. So this is ruled by Gendel the Weeper. So we know of a wildling chieftain called the Weeper. We don't know what his first name is or what clan he belongs to, but he's called the Weeper because he has red, roomy eyes that are constantly watering. He also has a tendency to pluck out the eyes of his victims. So yeah, sadistic. That makes perfect sense. He's a brutal warlord. He allies himself with Mance Rayder and fights at the Bridge of Skulls, but he loses. And he doesn't take part in Tormund's truce. No, he sets up camp beyond the bridge, and he's sort of gathering forces for a big attack. He's the one who captures 3 Night's Watch members, including Blackjack Bulwer, and beheads them and sends them back. There's another Gavin the Trader here. Okay, this one doesn't belong to a clan. I don't know if that was a mistake, maybe. 2 different people made their own Gavin the Trader. And here we have Harmer. Now, there are other wildlings called Harmer, but this one has the sadistic trait, so this makes me think it's Harmer Dogshead, a wildling leader who despises dogs to the point where she kills 1 dog every fortnight. She used to, skirmish and battle with the wildling chief Rattleshirt, but Mance Rayder managed to secure a peace between them, and they both joined Mance Rayder's camp. She commands Mance's vanguard during the attack on the wall, but she ends up being killed by Stannis' forces. Her brother, however, Halleck, survives, and he takes part in the truce. Over these mountains we have Cape Walrus, ruled by Chieftain Tormund Giantsbane himself, Tormund of Ruddy Hall. And here we have a seal. the Giant's Bane, the Thunder Fist. He's not a tall man, but he is wide. Gregarious, brave, arrogant, generous, yeah. Some people say he slew a giant once. He claims to have sliced open the belly of a giant to hide inside its belly and survive the snowstorm, only for the giantess to think it was her baby and start suckling it. Yeah, very weird. He also claimed to have slept with a bear, which may just be a tall tale or a weird admittance, or perhaps he hooked up with the Lady of Bear Island, Mage Mormont, and it looks like they've situated him very close to Bear Island. That's interesting. Yeah, he joins Mance Rayder, but after after they're defeated, he leads that truce I was talking about, giving up hostages and wealth, manning the garrisons, and so on. So yeah, his son Torug is known as Torug the Tall. He fancies the wildling woman Val. Torwind is known as Torwind the Tame. He actually dies from the cold, and he rises again as a wight, and Tormund is forced to kill him. His son Dormund is killed by Stannis' forces, specifically a knight with moths on his shield, so with moths probably Sir Richard Hawke. And then his daughter Munda marries a wildling called Longspear Rick. In his court we have a red-headed 4-year-old called Ygritte. I wonder if that's meant to be the Ygritte, the future lover of Jon Snow. We've also got One Weg Wonder-One, a giant. I didn't actually know they represented giants this way in the mod. Just huge boys. Clan Weg Wonder-One. Oh, there's Rick Longspear, there he is. There's the kid who marries Tormund's daughter. Now if we go north over these mountains, then we have Dirkvis, which is ruled by Clan Axbar, an axe on brown. Chieftain Brog. Now I don't know about the word Axbar, but Brog is a wildling leader who accompanies Tormund across the wall, blah blah blah, you've heard it before. Hopping over these mountains we have Wintermouth, ruled by Rattleshirt. Rattleshirt is called so because he wears a suit of bones, essentially, that all rattle together when he walks. Rattleshirt is more of a derogatory nickname. He calls himself the Lord of Bones to sound intimidating. So he used to fight with Harmer Dogshead, as I said before Mance Rayder brokered a peace, and then he joined Mance. He captures Jon Snow and Corrin Halfhand in the Skirling Pass. That's where Jon kills Corrin to gain the Wildlings' trust. He ends up being captured by Cotter Pike, and he's held captive at Castle Black, and Melisandre puts a glamour on him. A ruby, a magical ruby, and it makes him look like Mance Rayder, and then he's burnt at the stake. In the show he appears at Hardhome and he's beaten to death by Tormund because he makes a cock joke to him or something. Continuing further eastwards we have Echoing Flats, ruled by Clanbreaker, the destroyer of other clans, I guess. This seems like a non-canon wildling chieftain they've made up. And what's interesting about the wildlings that live in the east side, beyond the wall, at least in the mod, is that they all have animal names like Red Elk, as you can see, Dognose, Little Aurochs, Flying Hawk, Running Fox. Bone Hummock is ruled by Chieftain Devon Sealskinner of Clan Iceguard. Devon Sealskinner, again, a wildling leader who accompanies Tormund, and he's given command of the Night's Watch Castle of Greengard. Again, lots of animal names in his court. Small Goat, Black Rabbit, Cowardly Weasel, why would you call yourself that? These must all be auto-generated. There are some fun ones here. Yellow Dog. Moving over to the Frozen Gulch, we have the Great Walrus himself. And maybe the fact that this chieftain is called the Great Walrus in a book is what inspired them to have all of these names, like, Little Fox. Oh, that's unfortunate. That is what? And in the mod he belongs to Clan Frostbite. And as you've probably guessed, he's one of the wildling leaders who accompanies Tormund and takes part in that truce. And then over to Brevalik, we have Clan Riverblood, ruled by Chieftain Torug. I think this is non-canon, this is made up for the mod. Okay, so let's backtrack and start going north. So moving over to Bronze Brook, ruled by the Hornfoot clan. So I don't know if Soren is a character in the books, but we do hear of the Hornfoots. They're called so because they wear nothing on their feet, and so, the soles of their feet turn hard and gross and black. They initially join Mance Rayder, but then they kneel after Stannis, defeats him. Hornfoots, Hornfeet, how do I say that? If we move over to Chained Moor, we have the clan Skullsmourn, 4 black skulls and white, ruled by Doss the Blind. So yeah, Blind Doss is a wildling leader who takes part in the truce. In his court he has another free folk leader who takes part in that truce, Howd the Wanderer. In the mod he's part of Clan Torgrand. In the mod he's part of Clan Torgrand. We can also see Dalla and Val. So Dalla being the future wife of Mance Rayder, who dies giving birth to his son, and that son is sent with Sam Tarly to Old Town to stop Melisandre from burning him as a blood sacrifice. King's blood and all that stuff. And her sister is Val, who of course has the beautiful trait because she's considered just this stunning wildling woman with honey hair. The Southerners consider her a princess because because of who she's related to. She's currently at the Wall, and Queen Selyse wants her to marry Sir Patrick of King's Mountain, but he's killed by the giant 1/1, so she's open and available. Looking at you, Jon Snow. Moving over to Blazewood, we have Clan Boarhell with a boar's head. Irk not the boar. So here we have Aegon, which I think is a reference to Aegon Oldfather, the clan chief. His following is supposedly composed of mostly his children and his grandchildren, and he's one of the Truce wildling leaders. Okay, yeah, they've given him a bunch of kids and a bunch of grandkids, so this must be Oldfather. Oh look, it's Mag the Mighty, the last of the giants. Coldwood is ruled by the Nightrunner clan. So the Nightrunners fought with the Hornfoots before Mance Rayder intervened and negotiated a peace, a bit like Harmer Dogshead and Rattleshirt, and then they joined Mance Rayder. Bloodbend is ruled by the Shivers clan with a Snowbear, and here we have Sorin Shieldbreaker, who is a famous warrior. Takes part in the truce and gives his son up as a hostage, so they've given him a son here. And he's granted the castle of Stone Door by Jon Snow. In his court we can see Harl the Handsome and Harl the Huntsman. So yeah, one of the wildling leaders, part of the truce, he absolutely hates his brother, Harl the Huntsman. Supposedly they both side a son with the mother of the other brother's son, so it's a bit messy there. And then finally, before we reach the land of always winter, inhabited by giant spiders and perhaps White Walkers, we have the Thenns, perhaps the most interesting of the Wildling clans. Most of these banners, coat of arms are made up for the mod, but the Thenns do actually have this as their symbol, sort of like a sun with jagged rays on white. As you can see, the leader of this clan is wearing a crown. He is a Magnar, which is the old tongue word for lord. So the Thenns consider themselves to sort of be the last of the first men, and they speak the old tongue, they wear bronze armour and swords, they have more structure and I guess you could argue more civilization than the rest of the wildlings in terms of lore and hierarchy and so on. So they've actually been given the Magnaric culture, which is distinct from any other part of Westeros, but we will get into that in my next video where I talk about all of the cultures and faiths in this mod. But yeah, they consider the Magnar to be an almost godlike figure. And of course, if you saw my North video, you'd know that there's a noble house on Skargos known as House Magnar. So descended from that old tongue word, lord. So Styr himself, this guy, is a very strict ruler. You know, rules with an iron fist and all that. Mance had to defeat him 3 times before he could convince him to join. So during Mance's attack on the wall, Magnar Styr is climbing the wall and some sort of trap is activated and he ends up falling to his death. His son, Sigorn, becomes the next Magnar and he kneels to Stannis. Jon Snow weds him to Alis Karstark, who's the heir to Karhold, and he creates the House of Thenn. So if Harrion Karstark, who's in Lannister custody, if he dies, if he's executed, that would make Sigorn the new Lord of Karhold. So there I believe we have it, every member of the Night's Watch and all of the Wildling clans in the year 284, which basically means there's going to be one more in my CK3 series, which means there's basically one more thing to cover in my CK3 A Game of Thrones Explained series, that being the faiths and the cultures, so I'm excited for that. Click on this video to watch every North House explained, or if you want to see my animated content, check out the history of House Umber. Feel free to like the video, subscribe to Fantasy Haven, and check out the Patreon for exclusive goodies. Special thanks to my patrons, Andre, Colshot, Devcole, and Caden. See you next time.